Hello, Robert.
Hello, Josh.
Back again for part 3,
Yes.
for maybe the most important topic of them all, about Sophia. So could you tell a little bit about your background first, about you have this Sophia Foundation, etc., and how that came into being and your story with that?
Yes, well, my story really goes back to 1980 when I was visiting a friend in Amsterdam, and she invited me to go to a little chapel there where there had been some appearances to a woman who was a very remarkable, I would say a very pure being. And these appearances had started in 1945, around the end of World War II, and continued until 1959. And they were appearances of the Virgin Mary. And out of that, a chapel was built.
So appearances like a physical Virgin Mary?
No, manifestations, spiritual manifestations, where the Virgin Mary spoke to her, gave her messages.
Okay.
Yeah. And the central part of this communication was, in 1951, the communication of a special prayer for world peace. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple prayer, and in that prayer, Mary is referred to as the Lady of all peoples, who once was Mary. And this really takes us into another dimension beyond the earthly personality of the Virgin Mary. The Lady of all peoples relates to a higher being who we could describe as World Mother. Now, this prayer has since been translated into many different languages around the world and is an extraordinary, simple but powerful prayer for world peace.
Could you tell me the name of this woman who had this?
Yes, her name is Ida Pederman. She's no longer alive. Ida Pederman. I don't think she's alive. And she, I met her when I visited this chapel. And while I was there, there was a special painting of the Virgin Mary standing on the world and holding out her arms in the form of a cross as, so to say, protecting the world from degeneration, from disaster, from war. And while I was contemplating this painting, I had an experience of an incredible cloud of white light that came forth from the painting, and I knew that this was an experience of Sophia, who we could call the world soul or the world mother. And so, to give some context, if we think of the ancient Egyptian civilization, there they revered Osiris and Isis was for the Egyptians the world mother. There are many temples around Egypt dedicated to Isis and others to Osiris, who were seen as it were, as a divine couple. Mm-hmm. And so Sophia is, we could say, the Greek word which means wisdom, relates to this being Isis, but is a new expression for this same being who the Egyptians were able to behold. Mm-hmm. And so when we speak about Osiris, Osiris is really another expression for what the Greeks called the Logos. And we find then that the Greeks believed that the world was created through this working together of the Logos, or the divine word, and Sophia, the divine wisdom. So if we think of when a human being is speaking, we hear the word, but we hope that the human being is speaking in a conscious way, and that his words make sense. And this is the wisdom aspect. The wisdom and the word work together. Mm-hmm. So it was the conception that for the Egyptians, Isis and Osiris had created the world. For the Greeks, Logos and Sophia. Okay. So when we speak of Sophia, we're really speaking of the divine wisdom that poured into the creation of the world, united with the Logos, or the power of the word, and that, as it is expressed by John, in the beginning was the Word, all things were made through the Word. We should really say in the beginning was the Word, or the Logos, and Sophia, all things were made through the Logos and Sophia. That would be a more complete statement. Mm-hmm. So if we have a true understanding of Sophia as the world wisdom, then we can use an analogy. If we think of the divinity or the creator as an architect, and an architect, first of all, creates a plan for his creation. And so, in this case, the divinity brought forth the wisdom, which is the plan of creation, and also brought forth the word as the fiery power that would bring this plan of creation into existence. So this is one way we can connect with Sophia.
So in Egyptian mythology, Ra is the sun god, right? And then you say Isis is the mother of the planetary consciousness. Mm-hmm. In indigenous traditions, they are talking about the mother divine and the father sky as the sun. So, but you are making a connection to Osiris instead of Ra. So Osiris is the word, but not we don't do the sun and planet, like the planetary consciousness and the sun consciousness, and connect them, or what?
Well, I would say that Ra and Osiris are different aspects of the same being. That the Egyptians thought of Ra as the god of the sun, and Osiris is the divine word, but who worked especially through the power of the sun.
Okay, like that. Okay.
Yeah. So when we think of this plan of creation, and if we think of in the Bible, we hear of King Solomon, who was the wisest human being of his time, and Solomon built the temple at Jerusalem, and in the books of Solomon we read about Sophia. Well, of course, he uses the Hebrew word chokmah. Chokmah is translated as wisdom, and for the Greek word Sophia means wisdom. So chokmah and Sophia are one and the same. And King Solomon was inspired with the plan for the creation of the temple through chokmah, or wisdom, or Sophia. So we can read in the book of Proverbs, in chapter 8, the words with which Solomon was inspired, where he says that wisdom was present, or so we could say Sophia was present at the side of the Creator from the beginning of the creation, and has worked to help bring forth the creation. And then in chapter 9 we read, wisdom has set up her temple. Her temple has 7 pillars. And this gives us a point of entry to understanding the being of Sophia when we think of the 7 days of creation. These are the 7 pillars in the temple of Sophia. So we think of this unfolding of time, and in certain traditions it is said that we are now at the 4th stage of creation now, and that we have 3 previous stages of the world, and there are 3 to come. So that...
Does that mean, when you say 4th level of creation, is that the level of consciousness we have, or is it the root races you're talking about, or how to interpret that?
The interpretation that describes this best is that we now have a physical earth, a physical existence, and in the preceding 3 phases of the earth, these were preparatory, and it's only in this 4th phase that the physical earth has taken shape.
Oh, like that. Okay.
Yeah. But then that we, humanity, we human beings, are intimately bound up with Mother Earth. Now, I'm going to come to the relationship between Mother Earth and Divine Sophia as the wisdom of creation.
Okay. Before we continue, a lot of people have heard of the Gaia theory, or like we are looking at the world as a living conscious being, and they call it Gaia. What is that compared to Sophia? Is any correlation, or completely different, or the same, or what's your take on that?
Yes, Gaia is a Greek word, and it means Mother Earth. So it's exactly this relationship between Mother Earth and the divine plan of creation that is embodied by Sophia that we can explore. Now, in modern day scientific understanding, we have the idea of evolution, what came through very strongly, of course, with the work of Darwin, which gives a completely materialistic picture of evolution. Prior to that, the main view of evolution was what was taught by Moses about the 7 days of creation. So we find that when Darwin's work was published in 1859, that really began this unfolding of materialism in a very strong way, because Darwin puts forth the idea that humanity is descended from the apes, and in fact, from a spiritual perspective, that is a complete misunderstanding on Darwin's part. He's missing that apes, and in fact all the animals of creation, are manifesting certain aspects of humanity. We don't have the time now to go into all those details, but the basic understanding we can have is that the Earth, Mother Earth, there are 4 levels. There's the mineral substance of the Earth, the physical Earth, then the plant world, the animal world, and then humanity. And that these represent 4 distinct levels of consciousness. What is interesting with the human being is that the human being is able to say I, or I am. And this is part of our divine origin, that human beings are able to say this. Mm-hmm. So we could say the purpose of creation for humanity is we are on a journey unfolding towards becoming divine beings. Mm-hmm. And that our I consciousness is intrinsic to this. This is what distinguishes us from the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom. but we are bound up with these kingdoms of Mother Earth, and we're bound up with all the forces of Mother Earth. And we have this symbiotic relationship between Mother Earth and our very sense of being, our sense of existence is bound up with being here on planet Earth. And so the part of this awakening that Sophia is helping us to bring about now.
So there's an awakening going on.
Yes.
So basically she is waking up, or we are waking up, or she's waking us up, or how is that? What's going on?
Yes. So we could say that there is an awakening taking place for humanity through the inspiration of Sophia and through the awakening of Mother Earth. So, for example, we think in the 1960s, but more strongly from around about 1980 onwards, there was this environmental movement. This environmental consciousness began to awaken much more strongly that we need to care for Mother Earth. And this is very important. So, first of all, in order to grasp the relationship between Sophia, the world's soul, and Mother Earth, with whom we are existentially bound up physically. So let's think about Mother Earth with all the food we receive, the water we drink, the air we breathe. We owe all of this to Mother Earth.
Yes.
And so Mother Earth cares for us in a very powerful way. And this has always been the case, this relationship with Mother Earth. And that is why the poets refer to our mother, because of this caring aspect.
Also, you could say when you are in the womb of your mother, she's providing air for you, she's providing food for you, life force energy, shelter, protection, everything. So it's very much like a mother.
Exactly. And so if we go back in time, we find that human beings lived more in tribal consciousness, and they felt this very powerful connection with Mother Earth, and they honoured Mother Earth. We still see something of this with the Aborigines in Australia. For example, the Aborigines talk about Kanyini, which means the interconnectedness of all living beings. So that we are interconnected.
Which in the West will be referred to as quantum entanglement. much less romantic.
And so an Aborigine will say that within his tribe, each person is responsible for a certain area of Mother Earth, to take care of that. So there's not a sense of ownership of anywhere, but it's a sense of belonging to Mother Earth. And in Western civilization, by and large, we've lost this sense, but we have to regain this sense, and I think this is the positive aspect of the environmentalist awakening, to become gardeners. We tend Mother Earth, we care for Mother Earth, rather than simply regarding Mother Earth as something to be plundered, to make money out of, as is unfortunately the consciousness of modern corporations that seek only to exploit the earth and are creating all of this incredible desolate situation for destruction for Mother Earth.
So we are supposed to move more back to become the gardeners of the Eden, creating the Eden, and become the gardeners of this Eden.
Exactly. And of course, when we go back then to this sense of the Garden of Eden, that is when we go back to the this time when we were, so to say, in the womb of Mother Earth. And so there is an exact analogy, or rather we were, so to say, like little babies. We didn't have individual consciousness, but everything was taken care of. We didn't know suffering, we didn't know death, we didn't know, however, individual consciousness. And then there took place this cataclysmic event that is referred to in Hindu tradition, in Jewish tradition and other traditions as well, what is called the fall, the beginning of incarnations of human beings on the physical earth.
How long time ago is this?
Well, it's millions of years ago, of course. It's what is referred to by some as the ancient Lemurian period, and that was when this incarnation of human beings on planet Earth began. And with this fall, there began the process of individualization of human beings. So this was all part of the divine plan that this should take place, because just as a baby or a small child has to separate from its mother in order to become an individual, and the mother has to allow this to happen.
Yes.
See, Mother Earth had to allow this
wow,
to
that's
happen.
beautiful. I haven't even seen it like that.
So there's an analogy, you see, between the individualization of human beings, this process of separation from the mother, and that is the difference, we can say, between modern human beings and the indigenous tribes who still are very much connected with Mother.
So the indigenous, you could say, they created the sense of individuality, but they never forgot their mother.
Right.
Where we created the sense of individuality, but we forgot our mother.
Yes.
And so now we're running around hurting her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the great leaders of the Zulu people in South Africa, Credo Mutwa, he was a Zulu high chief who received a calling to bring the spiritual teaching of the Zulu people to humanity. He said it's time for this to happen, that we bring our secrets forth. And he put it in this way. He said that the white people are destroying the earth. And he said what needs to happen, we need to reconnect with the starry heavens, and we need to reconnect with Mother Earth. So these are two poles of existence. We could say the starry heavens and Mother Earth. And that has been very much what my life work has been about, is to awaken a new consciousness of our connection with the starry heavens and to reconnect with Mother Earth.
There's a lot of spiritual traditions, and throughout the years of my life I've done all these workshops, etc., and a lot of them, they begin with, you don't start any spiritual work on yourself or others. You begin with first connecting with your mother, really physically grounding, and then connecting with the Father Sky, the sun, the stars, and then you become this divine conduit of consciousness, and you become the vessel, the vehicle of these energies. So it is maybe as simple as that.
Exactly. That is the basic premise of this entire work, which I've been working for and with for the last 30 years or more, teaching workshops. So after my awakening to Sophia back in 1980 in Amsterdam, in this chapel there, I decided to dedicate my life to serving Sophia, and that's when...
How beautiful. I think we all should do that.
And that's when, more and more I began to receive what I would call Sophia teachings. And that is led then, I met various people who were on the same wavelength, and at the end of the year 1994, beginning of the year 1995, together with friends in California, we founded the Sophia Foundation. So there is a website, sophiafoundation.org, where one can find the activities that are presented through the Sophia Foundation, which began there in California at that time. And since that time, I've done hundreds of workshops, lectures in many different countries, in United States, Canada, in different European countries, and all the way to Australia, to bring this teaching to help this awakening to Sophia. And what I would say is the most important aspect of this is that Sophia is connected with the entirety of the starry heavens, is this great cosmic being who is the essence of creation, the divine plan of creation. So the more we connect with Sophia, the more we come to understand this unfolding of the divine plan of creation, that we are individualizing and we are to become more and more an expression of divinity, which right now we can see when we look at what is happening in the world, we can see that human beings need to have this awakening to the divine plan, because most human beings now in the Western world are caught up in an illusion that it is material possessions, having as much money as possible, that this is the goal, to own a beautiful house, many cars, go on wonderful vacations, and go to sports trainings,
fame, all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of that, and that is, I would call it a hijacking of human consciousness away from our true divine purpose.
So what forces made this happen? Like, how can you even forget your mother? How is that even possible?
There are forces at work which are behind this hijacking of humanity and the earth. And we find reference to these forces referred to as forces of darkness, or however we like to describe it, in the ancient Zoroastrian tradition. Zarathustra spoke about Ahriman as the Prince of Darkness. We find in the Egyptian teaching the opponent of Osiris, this being of light and love, that his opponent was Typhon, or sometimes called Seth. And in the Jewish tradition, we find the opponent of the divinity is referred to as Satan, who is referred to as the Prince of Darkness. So we find this in the different traditions, and this is a reality. We could say that the divinity has created all beings to be free. And so this being, whether we call this being Ahriman or Typhon or Satan, is a being who has his own agenda, which is opposed to the plan of divine creation. So is opposed to Sophia, is opposed to Osiris, is opposed to Christ is opposed to the powers of the good that are leading humanity. And we find a remarkable expression of this in the Zoroastrian tradition, where a conversation is recorded between the being of light, who is called Ahura Mazda, who is referred to as the power of the good, who at that time was connected with the sun. And Zarathustra received, we could say, an initiation. His consciousness was elevated to the level of the sun. He encountered Ahura Mazda and became his prophet. So he became the founder of the Zoroastrian religion, the religion of the good.
That sounds very Jesus-like in one way, I would say.
Yes. And he taught about how important it was to tend Mother Earth through agriculture and so on. So, but in this teaching, he also taught about this dark spirit, who he called Ahriman, who opposes Ahura Mazda. Now, he recorded a conversation between Ahura Mazda and Ahriman, and in that conversation, Ahura Mazda offers to Ahriman, says, we can work together for the good of humanity and the earth. And Ahriman was moved by a spirit of rivalry, and he said, no, he said, I am going to work to destroy your creation, everything you have created through your power of the word. I shall corrupt, and I shall put my own creation in its place.
Oh, my own creation?
Yes.
Okay, so not just destruction, but my own creation.
And he said, and all human beings who are connected with you now, he said, I will win them over to my side, and I will cause them to hate you, and I will cause them to forget you and be against you. And so Ahura Mazda recognized this was a challenge, so he accepted the challenge, and he said, but we're going to set a time limit of 9,000 years. And so then after that he said, I will, through the power of my word, I will destroy you. And so Ahriman has been waiting, we say Ahriman, the Prince of Darkness, or Satan, however we like to call him, has been waiting. And it was actually with the publication of works like Charles Darwin's The Origin of the Species in 1859, putting forward this materialistic view, that this was inspired by this dark force to win over human beings.
Interesting.
And take human beings away from the sense of divine creation. So, as I mentioned already, it was this sense of the 7 days of creation which was the backbone of Western understanding of spirituality for thousands of years. And this was cast aside when this completely materialistic view of creation came in through Charles Darwin. I'm mentioning Darwin only as one example because since then, and Ahriman has become stronger and stronger through science and technology to capture human consciousness with all kinds of clever ways. Just think of the invention of the computer.
Oh yeah, I was just about to think about that. Like we are reduced. First, we reduce human consciousness down to on a mechanistic level, down to just simple data, zeros and ones, and then we invent artificial intelligence. And now we say it's the same or it's getting better. AI is getting. So we took away the divine aspect of the human, which AI will never be able to surpass in any way or form. So it's very interesting because I hear all these people talking about AI and how soon it's going to be smarter than us, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Like the divine aspect of us will always be the greatest. Beyond, you cannot create any technology that has anything to do with that.
That is exactly. And so what we're witnessing now, I call this the second fall. So there was this cataclysmic event which brought us out of the womb or the embrace of the Divine Mother, and we began our journey here on the earth from incarnation to incarnation of individualization. And now, having attained this individual consciousness, there is this second fall taking place to hijack the whole earth and the whole of humanity into this artificial intelligence direction, which would replace our divine creation and would prevent us from going to the next level, which is the development of spiritual consciousness. And Sophia is here to help us develop spiritual consciousness. And that is my experience, that she awakens us to our higher self, which is dormant within every human being. Say that Sophia is this heavenly being who loves and cares for every human being, and who wants to help us to re-find our true purpose here on earth, and to be able to get back on track with the unfolding of the divine plan that is her contribution and her guideline for humanity where we need to go. And so she holds the whole world in her embrace. And now we come back to this prayer, the Lady of all peoples. So all peoples of planet Earth are held in the embrace of Divine Sophia. Now, if we want to understand, come back to your question of the relationship between the heavenly Sophia and Gaia or Mother Earth, we could say it's like mother and daughter. It's very interesting. In Greek mythology, we find Demeter is the Earth Mother, and Persephone is the daughter. So I would say Persephone is related to the heavenly Sophia, is the daughter, and Demeter simply means the Earth Mother. So they work together. And we even find in Greek mythology a third aspect of the divine feminine that weaves between the consciousness aspect of the divine feminine, the world soul or Sophia more in the heavenly realm, and the Earth Mother in the earthly realm. And that she is referred to, well, in the Greek teaching, we hear, for example, Athena as the goddess who connects heaven and earth and helps human creativity and human consciousness. She was the goddess of the people of Athens. And in the Hebrew tradition, this third aspect is referred to Shekinah. Shekinah is, we could say, the soul aspect, bringing human souls together in a common sense of community. So Shekinah awakens this sense of community of all human beings, because all humanity is one family. So we have, just as in the Christian teaching, we have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In the Sophia teaching, we have Mother, Daughter, and Holy Soul, who are the divine feminine trinity. So the Mother is, so to say, the divine feminine counterpart of the Heavenly Father. The Daughter, or Sophia, is the divine heavenly counterpart of the Son, or the Logos. And the Holy Soul is the divine feminine counterpart of the Holy Spirit. And this is a very profound teaching which I've written about in the appendix to this wonderful book by Thomas Schipflinger, who I met, and this is the Spanish edition of it. It's originally in German, and there's also an English translation made by a friend of mine, and Thomas Schipflinger asked me to write an appendix about this teaching of the Divine Feminine Trinity. So that is included in this book, which is called Sophia Maria. And it's a wonderful book because it brings about this consciousness of who is Sophia, and also traces the relationship existing between Sophia and the Virgin Mary. This is what I became aware of when I had this Sophia experience in contemplating this image of the Virgin Mary as the Lady of all peoples. So there is this awakening that is taking place to the Divine Feminine. The Divine Feminine embraces these three levels: the Mother, the Daughter, and the Holy Soul. And I think it's very important that we come to consciousness of these three aspects. We can say that there is an awakening on all of these three levels. Humanity, certain parts of humanity are awakening to the divinity of the Earth Mother.
So if some of the listeners are sitting here and they want to invite that energy within them as much as possible, and they want to get to know their mother and reconnect to their mother, besides getting off Facebook and dropping a lot of activities that are disconnecting us from other humans and from Mother Earth, what else can we do? What is the best advice you can give to someone who just, I want to get to know my mother, I want to reconnect, and I want to invite the light in? What is the best advice you can give them?
Yes, well, it is in the first place to reconnect with nature and with the life force of nature. Now, of course, this is difficult for people living in cities,
yes,
but one can then, from time to time, go out of the city and go to beautiful locations in nature and just learn to love and appreciate Mother Nature. Now, there is, of course, a deeper aspect to this, which I'll go into now. So, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we hear the word Shambhala. Shambhala means the lost paradise. That is how this is expressed in the Western world. There is the great poem by John Milton, the English poet, called Paradise Lost. So here we come into very profound teaching about our relationship with the Earth Mother. We referred back to the Garden of Eden and then the fall, and the fall means nothing other than the beginning of incarnation of human beings in a physical body. Incarnation then going through many different incarnations in physical body, at different points in time, in different cultures, always learning new lessons in order to come to individualization. And so when this fall took place, the Earth Mother descended with those first fallen human beings out of love for humanity, and was, so to say, surrounding the earth, was as a presence, a divine presence. But then an event took place where Cain slew his brother Abel. It is as it's expressed in the Bible, and we had the first murder, the spilling of human blood on Mother Earth, which the Divine Mother had never envisaged would take place. Of course, now it is commonplace, but this was this first spilling of innocent human blood upon the earth. And this event was what caused the Earth Mother to withdraw down into the heart of the earth, as the center of the earth.
Oh, so she was more living and present before.
Yes.
Now she's okay.
Yeah. So withdrawn and is in a golden realm, if one can attune to this. And the name in the Tibetan tradition for this realm of the Earth Mother is Shambhala. Now, in the Tibetan tradition, Shambhala is usually connected with some location like a sacred valley in the Himalayas where the wise human beings, where the initiates gather and receive their special forces. And there are certain locations on planet Earth where there is a special connection with the Earth Mother in the heart of the earth, where those forces are more tangible. But the origin is in the center of the earth. We see, for example, with all plants and trees, that they, in their root system, extend down into the earth to receive the forces coming up from the Mother. And so we can begin to cultivate this. For example, in our walking, in our stepping upon Mother Earth, we tend to do this completely unconsciously. But if we take the example in the early morning, for example, to walk barefoot, to experience the morning dew of the grass, and with each step to feel our love and gratitude to the Mother, who bears us with her unconditional love. She loves all human beings completely, and she supports every human being with every breath we take, with the water we drink, with the food we eat. So on this very basic level, we could say we, like in the path of an individual who separates from his mother, goes out into the world, becomes a unique human individual in their own right. But the mother who gave birth to that individual always has the hope that her son or daughter will still be connected with them and will love them and appreciate them.
I think all mothers know that feeling.
Yes, indeed. And it is the same for the Earth Mother. So to begin to express back to the Earth Mother our love and appreciation for this gift of life that we've received from her, that will be the very first step. And of course it's difficult to do that in the big city. One can in one's prayers, of course, but if we go into nature and have this sense of connectedness and express inwardly our love and appreciation for the Mother, and her, just as our I consciousness is very much connected with this realm here within us, where we feel ourselves to be individuals. When I say I, of course that relates to my whole being, but there is a point of consciousness in the different traditions connected with what they call the third eye. This is where I feel my I am presence most strongly. And that presence is most powerful actually in the heart of the earth, in this golden realm of Shambhala. So this is what I'm working on right now. My new book is called The Shambhala Path. And in that I'm bringing certain exercises, how we can connect with Shambhala, because there is an awakening taking place. And we can begin to have an exchange between ourselves and Shambhala. Now, to indicate what this can become, we can look back historically to after the destruction of Lemuria, there arose the continent of Atlantis, which was in the region where there is now the Atlantic Ocean. And this, the first king of Atlantis was called Atlas. Atlantis was the island of Atlas, and Atlas is known for his extraordinary strength. You know, he was actually punished by Zeus, given the task to hold the heavens on his shoulders, on his neck. And interestingly, in medicine, the uppermost cervical is called the Atlas bone.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And Atlas, where did he gain his strength? Through his connection with the Earth Mother. And so this is the possibility that we can regain our connection with the Earth Mother by becoming conscious of her. And this is what she wants. She wants us now to become conscious of her. She has supported us through all our incarnations. The Earth Mother is waiting for us to become conscious of her. And so when we direct our inner sense of reverence and devotion to the whole of this great being of Mother Earth, whose life energy lives in all trees, plants, minerals, human beings, is everywhere, in oceans, beneath the earth, everywhere, that now is this time of reawakening to the Earth Mother, refinding this connection. And you see, this is the tragedy with being sucked into the world of virtual reality and artificial intelligence. This takes us out of our connection with our divine source of origin, with the Earth Mother.
So to me, it looks like the evolution of artificial intelligence and technology, etc., it's not going to stop. It's only going to accelerate and become more and more and more. And so, what do you see for the future? I mean, you said God said that He will speak His word and destroy the darkness in 9,000 years. That shouldn't by any chance be tomorrow or something like that?
Well, I think this is one of the things we're witnessing now in the world, is this sense of acceleration of this dark force, this what I call the second fall. So there is a kind of separation of human beings taking place. We are left completely free, of course, and we are free to follow the calling of the Earth Mother, follow the calling of Divine Sophia, to take our true place in the unfolding of creation, which is that we are to become divine beings. That is, it's as if we've come to a signpost in evolution, and one is tempting us, saying you can acquire extraordinary mental, intellectual powers by and through artificial intelligence. You can have, a small computer implanted into your brain and so on. But this is all a temptation. And the other signpost is what Sophia is holding up for us, the Divine Daughter, saying you can unite with me, you can find your higher self, you can discover that you are a divine being, that you are endowed with creative intelligence that reaches far beyond planet Earth, which reaches to the moon, to the sun, to the stars. This you will never find with artificial intelligence. So this is what I mean about this dark force that is endeavoring now to hijack humanity and in fact the whole earth. And the tragedy is that there are so many human beings who are open to this, and they are following this force of the Prince of Darkness in facilitating this hijacking of planet Earth. One of the most destructive impulses in our time is this launching of what they call 5G, which is to amplify electromagnetic forces, to overwhelm our consciousness, it's all about mind control ultimately, and to remove our freedom. Now, the higher beings, the Earth Mother, loves us as free individuals, respects our freedom. Sophia loves us as free individuals and respects our freedom. But this dark force does not respect our freedom and wishes just to capture us in this web of artificial intelligence, culminating with having something implanted within us, which would be like a miniature computer. The impulse of 5G is to bombard us with these electromagnetic forces so that we become completely compliant to this dark force, that we only act in the spirit of this dark force, which is that we become intelligent robots serving this impulse that would take us away from our divine origin and would trap us in a kind of electronic brain which we would not be able to escape from. I mean, this is presented, for example, in that movie, The Matrix, that this is what is...
This is basically what's going on.
Yeah.
The Matrix is not a movie, it's a documentary.
Exactly, yes.
And so if we had this conversation 1,000 years ago, you could say that the battle between good and evil was still part of the human game, and they had their trials and tribulations 1,000 years ago as well. But today it seems like it's extremely amplified now. Like it's very strong here now. And so there's this polarization of good and evil. It's like evil becomes even worse now, and the light, the goodness becomes even stronger now at the same time. So there is an awakening, and there's also a dumbing down of humanity and a harvesting of souls and, taking over. And so it's really bad and really good, and it seems to amplify and become more and more and more. And so has that to do with the fact that you say Sophia is waking up, she's awakening, and because of that the darkness is pushing more hard, or what is going on a cosmic scale right now?
Yes, well, this is a huge question. I think you've sketched the outline of what is taking place most suitably, and I'll now try and fill in some of the details, if you like, into this picture. So when the first fall took place, and again I just want to remind that we are in a process, the whole of humanity and the earth is now in this second fall. This is what we're witnessing. We're witnessing human beings becoming completely taken over by some dark impulse that is leading them astray from being true human beings.
Yeah. So the second fall is happening right in front of us right now, and AI, 5G technology, all that stuff is playing a huge role in that.
Exactly, yeah. That is, so to say, the instrument that is implementing this second fall is this kind of technology. Now, I'm not against technology as such. I believe that technology has also a very good side, but humanity has to be master of technology. We have to be able to use technology wisely and not become enslaved by it. See, this is the turning point now, when I think it was 1994, the world chess champion from Russia was defeated by the IBM computer program Deep Blue in a game of chess. And this was this moment of triumph for the development of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is smarter than human beings. The world chess champion.
Yeah. In chess. Yeah.
And so this is what is at work now. And of course it's been at work for some time. I've mentioned Charles Darwin, and then there are other examples we find in the evolution of consciousness. Einstein, and who put forward his view, and but if we go back to already Isaac Newton was a very interesting human being because he was involved with alchemical research and biblical chronology and things like that, but he came up with a very mechanistic kind of clockwork view of the universe. And so the English poet William Blake, who was really had quite an extraordinary spiritual consciousness. He was a painter and a poet. He wrote very inspired spiritual poetry, and he drew these amazing imaginative images of the world and human beings. And he spoke about Newton's dark mills grinding away, that they're like clockwork. So already it began back then, this kind of mechanical picture of humanity and the earth. At the time of the so-called Enlightenment in France, there was the French philosopher and researcher Julien de la Mettrie, who wrote his book L'Homme Machine. The human being is a machine. And this is what has come about in our time. This picture of the human being as a kind of sophisticated machine. If there's something wrong with you, you go into hospital, the surgeon operates on you, fixes the parts. It's a bit like taking the automobile broken down into the garage and the mechanic repairs it. See what I mean? And the human being is much more. The human being is a being of soul and spirit. And this is what has to awaken. So one of the big challenges in our time is with vaccination, because vaccination is a way of attacking the small child, the baby, with vaccination by putting stuff into the baby to cut it off from these other higher levels of consciousness, that we are soul, spiritual beings. So there is an incredible assault taking place upon humanity at the present time through all of these methods, the genetically manipulated organisms, GMOs as they're called, we can see all of this when we go back to this original challenge that Ahriman issued, this Prince of Darkness. He said, I will replace your living creation with my own creation. And that's what GMOs are, because GMOs are artificial, and in the course of time it will come about. They may look like real plants, but they don't nourish us like real plants do. Yeah. This is a huge assault upon humanity with GMOs. Then we have
so many things, like we have the GMO vaccination, chemtrails, Wi-Fi signal, 5G, We have weaponized food. There's specific toxins in different foods, and if you combine them, it turns really into something very bad. Fluoride in the water, chlorine in the water. I mean, everything is being nanotechnology in the rain that's coming down from the chemtrails. It's not a good planet right now to live on. It's difficult to stay clean. And so, yeah, they begin with the children to vaccinate them with all these formaldehydes and heavy metals that go straight into the pineal gland, shuts it down, etc. But the assault continues even when you are an adult, and it just never ends.
Well, this assault is happening because this dark spirit finds a large enough number of human beings who are willing to serve this dark impulse of hijacking humanity and the earth. I mean, the earth is being assaulted now in the most incredible way, through the air, through the water. And we think of these tragic events like the Gulf oil spill in the year 2010, destroying a large part of the Atlantic Ocean. Fukushima, 2011, the Pacific Ocean. These are tragic events for Mother Earth, and that is why this awakening is so important. And so it's wonderful, actually, that there are various books coming out.
Can you please talk a little bit about all these books you pulled out here?
Yes, so this is a wonderful book, The Return of the Feminine and the World Soul, by Llewellyn Vaughan Lee. He is a Sufi living in California, and just some of the titles here: Reclaiming the Feminine Mystery of Creation. We could say Sophia as the plan of creation, the contribution of the feminine, patriarchal deities and the repression of the feminine, because that is, of course, one of the tragedies of evolution, was the suppression of the feminine by the masculine, feminine consciousness and the masculine mind. These are intended to work together. We could say that the divine feminine awakens more these heart qualities, and the divine masculine is about the power of the will, the power of the mind, but we need this heart consciousness of the feminine to be full human beings. The sacred feminine and global transformation, women and healing of the earth. Women are much more connected with the earth, of course, through their monthly cycle and feeling this connection with Mother Earth. The energy of matter, we have to awaken to the energy in matter. The awakening to the soul of the world, invoking the world soul, I would say it's invoking Sophia, and the light of the soul. These are just some of the titles in this work. Now, one very important aspect I'd like to mention here. So I've mentioned already this book by Thomas Schiflinger, Sophia Maria, a holistic vision of creation is the subtitle. And in this work, we come to the theme of the Virgin Mary. See, the Virgin Mary holds a very special relationship to Sophia, and that comes out also in this book, Sophia, the Wisdom of God, an outline of Sophiology by Sergei Bulgakov. He was a Russian theologian from the Russian Orthodox Church who left Russia and then became head of the Orthodox priest training in Paris and wrote many books. This is a wonderful introduction to Sophia. And what this reveals is that in Russia they've had this sense of Sophia, this heavenly being as the wisdom of God. So again we come back to Logos and Sophia. Now, in the Christian tradition, the Logos is identified with Christ, and Sophia with the wisdom of God. And these two work together. We find this expressed in the book of Revelation, the last book in the Bible, where Christ is referred to as the Lamb who sacrificed himself, and Sophia is referred to as the bride of the Lamb. So there is this inner relationship. And in the teaching I mentioned before, Christ, or the Logos, is referred to as the Son, the creative power of the Word, and Sophia is referred to as the daughter, as the wisdom of creation. Logos and Sophia work together, the Lamb and his bride. And so now, just filling in the details of what is taking place in our time, is that when the first fall took place, the first human beings, we think of Adam and Eve, they have different names in different traditions. They are the progenitors of the human race on the physical level. And they knew that there needs to come a power of redemption to overcome the consequences of the fall. So they were, so to say, led into incarnating upon the earth through the force of desire that became implanted in them through the serpent, or Lucifer. Lucifer is a being of light. He invaded the human being on a soul level to implant this impulse of desire in order to lead us away from the mother, because otherwise we had everything. We were in the womb, we received all the nourishment, we received everything we needed, there was no suffering, and so an impulse had to come to lead us out on this path of individualization. So the first fall was allowed to take place, this invasion of Lucifer, this being of light, was allowed to come into us and implant desire in us. And then we had the desire to incarnate upon the earth. And we see this is repeated at the conception of every child. There is the force of desire, brings the parents together, and then the soul is able to incarnate. So
the first fall would be conception, and the second fall would be the separation from the mother. So you could say kind of like the birth of the child, and cutting the umbilical cord and disconnecting from mother.
Well, yes, this
in a way you could say that.
Yes. So this was way back in the Lemurian age, before the Atlantean age, and the Atlantean age is the age before our own present great age. In the previous talk I gave in this series in Dharma Portal, there I spoke about these different astrological ages. We're now approaching the end of the age of Pisces, coming towards the age of Aquarius. And if we go back to the beginning of this present cycle, each cycle contains 7 astrological ages. The age of Pisces that we're in now is the 5th age. And so we go back to the first age of ancient India. That was in the age of Cancer, where this profound wisdom of the Vedas came in. But before that, or towards the end of the age of Leo, because it goes backwards, the ages go backwards, because the precession of the equinox. Towards the end of the age of Leo was when there was the great flood that destroyed Atlantis. So if we go back into the previous ages of Leo, before that Virgo, before that Libra and so on, we come back to the Atlantean period when there were also 7 ages. And then if we go back to the first age of Atlantis, that was actually the preceding age of Aquarius, so a long time ago. And before that, if we go back to the preceding age of Pisces, that was the last age of Lemuria, when there was a great cataclysm, fire and brimstone, or volcanic eruptions that destroyed ancient Lemuria. Then the great flood, it was a water catastrophe that destroyed Atlantis. And there will again, at the end of these 7 stages that we're in, of evolution in right now, what I'm speaking of is all out of the consciousness of Sophia, who is the guide of humanity and the earth through these stages of evolution. And then there will come, at the end of the age of Capricorn, there will come another great catastrophe, an air catastrophe. So we have a fire catastrophe destroying Lemuria, a water catastrophe destroying Atlantis, and there will be an air catastrophe. There will be a kind of war in the element of air that will destroy the present cycle, and then we'll begin a new cycle again. So we are now in this unfolding, and the time of the fall goes all the way back to ancient Lemuria. And then this is when we began our cycle of incarnations upon the planet. And as I mentioned already, the first human beings experienced there has to come a redeemer to overcome the consequences of the fall, which were toil, suffering, and death. And the redeemer, or the Messiah, was awaited, and he came then in the shape of Christ, who through his teaching overcame toil. As he said, "Come unto me, all ye who are heavily burdened, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." He overcame suffering in that everywhere he went he healed human beings, that is the root of suffering. And then through his resurrection he overcame death. And he instituted then the ideal, or the goal for all humanity, is that we attain resurrection, which is to be attained through the power of divine love, becoming so strong in us that our physical organism is transformed into the resurrection body. We say that Christ attained this in that one single incarnation through special circumstances. And that is the goal towards which we are all evolving. That is the purpose of our various incarnations, step by step evolving towards resurrection.
And so in Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about this as the rainbow body. That's the ascension body. So there's the ascension and resurrection. And so from what my understanding is, you can die and ascend, or you can die and come back, pick up the body and bring it with you. That's resurrection. And then you can just ascend straight directly, where you turn your body into rainbow body. And so they found these Tibetan monks in Chinese prisons just disappearing. And the only thing that is left is a pair of plastic teeth and some glasses and the ropes, and the rest is gone. And so this has been a real event. People have reported that. It's very interesting with this whole ascension. So basically I can imagine that bringing your conscious awareness to that level, if you're full of heavy metals and toxins and vaccinations, GMO foods and nanotechnology, and you're living in a virtual reality already, and you're disconnected from nature, and you're sitting on Facebook all day completely alone, thinking you're together with everybody, disconnected from everything. It's going to be a far stretch to actually even comprehend how important this is.
Yes, and so that's the importance of this, that we work to bring the higher consciousness of the purpose of human existence. The end goal of human existence is not to be a humanoid motivated by artificial intelligence. It is to be a resurrected being capable of miracles through the power of divine love. As Christ said to his disciples, "Ye shall perform even greater miracles than I have done." You know, that which healing, raising people from the dead. And this is the promise. If we can take up our true path, we can become more and more creative and endowed with healing powers, endowed with higher consciousness that enables us to connect with higher cosmic intelligences. That is what is the promise of our unfolding evolution, if we can take it up. But as you say, now with all of these challenges facing us, we have to awaken and see these are incredible forces at work to bring us down, to take us away, and to enslave us. And so, if I just use an analogy, if you think of angelic beings, if you believe in angels, I mean, we find in earlier times all these paintings of angels, angelic beings, and it is said that each human being has a guardian angel who shepherds them towards their path of evolution from one incarnation to the next. And imagine the despair for the guardian angels, seeing the human being they are responsible for so enslaved and entrapped, and spending hours every day sitting in front of a flickering machine which is lifeless, actually. And
feeding it all your life force energy into this black hole of technology.
And seeing that actually each human being is endowed with incredible creative powers. You could be a wonderful architect or sculptor or painter or musician.
Or husband or wife.
Yes, or husband or wife. Yes. Poet, dancer. All of these are God-given creative powers within us which are waiting to unfold if we turn toward our higher self, which actually our guardian angel is holding for us. And Sophia is also referred to as the Queen of the Angels, who is connected with all these angelic beings, all these angelic intelligences. So now to come back to, just to complete this, and I've written about this in my book, Christ and the Maya Calendar, which is really about this year 2012 as a very important turning point in evolution, where this battle is taking place between good and evil. And in that book I describe the first fall and how Christ came to overcome the consequences of the first fall. And now this second fall is taking place, and Sophia is the being who is actually beginning a path of descent from cosmic heights to overcome the consequences of this second fall. So if we connect with Sophia, we can come through this and overcome all that is happening, all these things that you're describing, and she will steer us or guide us through what is now unfolding for humanity. It's a kind of nightmare, actually. so many young people now are filled with anxiety because they experience on a subconscious level all of these devastating things taking place here on planet Earth, but they don't know what to do about it. And we have to find Sophia, who loves us and cares for us, because she will guide us through this into the future. And there will be a kind of showdown and overcoming of these dark forces that are trying to hijack evolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, so the battle is on, and we are dealing with great temptation and great suffering, and yet there's hope and intelligence out there. Sophia is here, and all we need to do is connect and open up and say yes and ask for it.
Exactly, yes. And in my various books, I've described ways of connecting with Sophia. For example, in the stars, there is this, which I was editor of this for many years, Journal for Star Wisdom, and now a friend of mine has become editor, Joel Park, and just called Star Wisdom, Volume 1. And we see this symbol here of the 12 stars, the sun and the moon. This cosmic symbol is also a symbol of Sophia, who is referred to in the book of Revelations, the woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. So this image really is a kind of abstract representation of divine Sophia, who can awaken us to star wisdom, or astro Sophia. Astro is star, Sophia is wisdom. So this is one of the things I've been working with, and the stars are always there as our friends and guides and helpers. They are eternal companions. We can make friends with them, and every single star offers us a gift for our evolution. We can take up this instead of just sitting in front of the computer.
So maybe go out at night and keep your eyes on the stars while you have your feet on the ground.
Exactly, yes. That is very well put, Josh, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak on this theme, which I've dedicated my life to. Just to mention this book on the mystery, biography and destiny of Mary Magdalene, who is very important in our time to help us and guide us in this awakening to the divine feminine. So
we need more of this.
Yes.
You have some more books. Could you please show this as well?
Yes. So I'm editor of, until recently I was editor of this journal Starlight, Journal of the Sophia Foundation. One can simply go to the Sophia Foundation website, sophiafoundation.org, look for Starlight, and one can download as PDF these journals that I've been editing for all these years. Now, the last two issues, I'm no longer the editor, but I'm an advisory editor or consulting editor. And there are many wonderful articles in this which are all about Sophia and how to connect with Sophia. So
there's practical applications in here?
Yes.
And is this for free to download?
Yes, it's for free.
So you can go on sophiafoundation.org and you find this as a PDF to download for free.
Yes, Starlight, yes. So perhaps just one last thing to mention is that Sophia is the world soul and the bestower of divine wisdom in all the different religious traditions. And so the great founders of religion, I mentioned Zarathustra, the founder of the stream of Zoroastrianism. Then, of course, we have Gautama Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, or the seven holy rishis, the founder of the Hindu tradition with the Vedas, and Lao Tzu, the founder of the tradition of Taoism, and so on. They are all inspired by Sophia. So we find different aspects of Sophia in different cultures, different points in time. And of course, Sophia works to bring what is appropriate for that particular time and for that particular consciousness. So in our time, I draw attention to Rudolf Steiner, who called his work Anthroposophia, also relating to Sophia.
And Philosophia is related to Sophia?
Yes, Philosophia, the first human being to call himself a philosopher, to use this expression, Philosophia, was Pythagoras. And that mystery stream for Pythagoras, Sophia was a real being who you could connect with through philo. Philos is love, the love of Sophia. That was the original meaning of Sophia.
So the love of Sophia is Philosophia.
Yes.
That should definitely give you a way more juicy, poetic approach to philosophical discussions, etc. Because many times I meet people who are calling themselves philosophers, but it seems very dry and boring, and it's devoid of this life, the heart space. And so it's very refreshing to hear that the origins were actually a very loving process.
Yes, yes. And this is all true, what we could call mystery wisdom. The wisdom of creation is accessible to us if we can connect with Sophia in the true sense of the word philosophia, through the love of Sophia. So to reawaken this, and Steiner uses anthroposophia. He says that anthropos is the human being, is connected with Sophia. Every human being is connected with Sophia through our higher self. And so he speaks of just how our true I consciousness is connected with Christ. We think of the words of St. Paul, not I, but Christ in me. Or as St. Augustine said, Christ is more I than I am myself. This is what in New Age terminology, the birth of I am consciousness or Christ consciousness within is accessible to everyone. And then through that we can come to Sophia as this higher consciousness of the whole consciousness of all the intelligence, the higher intelligence of creation and the world. So I think maybe that's a good place for us to end. Of course, there'll be much more to say, but just in this time, then it's been wonderful to be able to share what is on my heart relating to Sophia as true philosophy or love of Sophia.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful. I really enjoyed this. And I invite all the listeners to, after this video, when it stops, to go outside. And if it's in the middle of the night, look up to the starry night. And if it's in daytime, take off your shoes and ground yourself and connect with Sophia. It begins with the beginning, one small step at a time.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you to Josh, and I'd like to thank Boris for his work in as the videographer.
The man behind the camera.
The man behind the camera. Yeah. And gratitude to Dharma portal for making this possible.
Yeah, I think our future depends on all this. So I find it very relevant to do this, and I'm enjoying it very much. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you, Josh.
Bye.
Bye-bye.